This is Momo. You know Momo. And this is me. This is my face. You don't know me as well, but I'm going to talk to you today about flying through the air with your dog in the bottom of the airplane, in the hold, as they call it. I want to talk to you about why I did it and talk you through the whole process of doing it, from the paperwork to the crate training to whatever else came after. It's not an easy process. It's probably not for every dog. My situation, it worked out. It is for a good reason. And I'm here now. I'm here with my dog. I'm in Spain right now. I flew from Canada to Portugal, and here I am. So why did I do this? Well, I'm going to be here for 6 months. That's one thing. So a 6-hour flight for 6 months of travel, I felt was probably well balanced. Why am I going to Europe? Well, I really enjoy traveling. For one thing, I like to share my travels. I like to share my experiences with you guys. And additionally, we're probably going to make a Find Momo in Europe book, which I think might be a good one. More details of that will be coming out in the future as soon as everything is official. Why I think that maybe you should or maybe you shouldn't fly with your dog. If it's a short trip, if it's less than 3 weeks, then it might not be worth it. If your dog is a high anxiety dog, then it might not be a good one. But if you have a tough dog, if you have a well-trained dog or a dog that trains easy, then this might be the trip for you. But you know, traveling with a dog isn't always the easiest thing either, even when you're here in Europe. I'm going to be researching every country that I go to next to make sure there's no restrictions and to make sure that he's up to date with all his shots and everything that he needs for the country that I'm going into. And it's just going to be an ongoing process. So now I'm going to share my experience with you and hopefully maybe prepare you a little bit for if you've decided that this is something you're going to do, then this might help you a little bit along the way. Basically, I broke it into 3 steps. Step 1 is 2-parted. The first part is crate training your dog, which is what you should be doing now. And then the paperwork is the second part of step 1, which is the most annoying, most bureaucratic thing I can hardly handle. But I did, and I did it, and I'm here. Step 2 is going to be the day of travel, what you need to prepare for the day of travel, and what it was like for me to go through that whole experience. And then step 3 is reuniting with your dog. It's a very short step, and it's probably the best step. So here we go. Step 1. Part 1. Crate training. Start now. Go and get a crate for your dog. It's got to be big enough for him to turn around in and big enough for him to stand up in. Get that crate, get crate training. And you're going to start small. You're going to start with the door off of the crate, so the dog can come in and out as he pleases. Once he's comfortable kind of in it as his home, as his little happy space, I put a sheepskin in there for Momo because he's a sheep dog. He probably likes that. Once he's comfortable in there for 10-15 minutes at a time, then you can start closing the door and having him kind of in there confined and get him used to having the door closed. I don't like the word confined. I use that. I don't like it. More like secured. I'm going to say secured. Secured in his cage. Crate, his crate. I don't like cage. Confined in his cage sounds really bad, and secured in his crate doesn't sound as bad. Once your dog is comfortable kind of being in the crate and spending his time in there and being comfortable with the door, being secured for 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, increase that time. Leave for an hour. Keep him in there for an hour. And once he's comfortable doing that, do it overnight. And how do you know he's comfortable in it? He doesn't whine. He doesn't paw at the door. He doesn't bark constantly. That's how you know he's comfortable. And if he is barking constantly, I don't have much advice for you because Momo is the perfect dog and he didn't do any of that. Overnight is your ultimate goal. Your ultimate goal is you want your dog to be able to sleep in the crate overnight, and if you can, put him in another room. Put him in a room away from you so that he's used to being in a space that doesn't have you in it. And when you get your red-eye flight, he'll just kind of think, oh, I'm in another room. This is fine. Andrew will come back and let me out as soon as he wakes up. Part 2 of step 1 is the paperwork. This sucks. It's not good. This requires a lot of research on your own part. I had to do a lot because, you know, I'm leaving from Canada, I'm going to Portugal. These are specific places with specific sets of rules. So you have to research Portugal. What do they need for when you go into Portugal with your animal? And what does Canada give you that can do that? And what country are you coming from? Is your country a rabies-controlled country? Is your country rabies-free country, or does your country have rabies? If so, you're probably going to have to wait in quarantine with your dog, so I recommend don't do it. Don't go to a country that you need to quarantine your dog. I would hate that. I mean, unless you really have to for some reason because you're moving somewhere, then maybe, but I don't know. I just wouldn't want to quarantine my dog, that's all. Once you've figured everything out that the country that you're going to needs for you to go there, then you have to get your form stamped by an official government body. Canada is the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. They need to review the forms. They need to make sure everything's in order, and they give you the form, and then you have it stamped, and then you can go to the next country. Now, when I landed in Portugal, I had to bring these forms to the desk in the airport and have them review it and make sure it all looked good to them. That's why the CFIA stamps it, is so that when you get there, it's actually in order and you're not in a mess and you don't have to ship the dog back. For Momo, I had to make sure his rabies vaccination was up to date, and that prior to the rabies vaccination, he had an ISO certified 15-digit microchip installed in him. He has a chip in the back of his neck. A lot of dogs do. And if you're going to be traveling with your dog, you either need to make sure you have one or get one. So that concludes step 1. So step 2, during your trip. The most important thing was that he was well exercised, that he was tired, that when I dropped him off at the oversized luggage counter, that he just wanted to sleep. So I ran him for a few hours that day. All day I would go as much as I could, even though it was a travel day, so I was running around doing last-minute things, which I always tend to do. I had to find time to run him because that is the most important thing. I want him to be tired. I want him to just sleep throughout the flight. A lot of people ask me, did you sedate your dog? Apparently, you're not supposed to give your dog sedatives before a flight. It lowers their brain activity, it lowers their heart rate, it lowers their respiration. It basically makes them less aware of their surroundings, and they need that awareness to be able to deal with the confusion of that flight. You don't want them being more confused and more anxious, which it actually could cause. So, sober dog is a good dog in air travel. So here's my experience going to the airport and dealing with all that. This was judgment day for me. This was a big deal. I'd never done this before. I'd never flew with my dog before. So I arrived at the airport and my flight was delayed by 2 hours. So what I did was I took Momo outside and I ran him. And then that was the next thing. I brought him to the oversized luggage counter. I dropped him off. The woman that was there was amazing. She hung out with Momo and I for a little while. And then once I had to go, she sent me to the Air Transat counter where I would tell them that Momo was waiting for them. They would send someone over to move the crate into the kind of storage area of the airport, I guess. What they told me this process looks like from the dog's perspective, because I asked this specifically when I called them on the phone, between the time I drop them off to the time the flight takes off, what does that look like for the dog? Well, the dog stays in the cargo area of the airport until all the luggage is loaded onto the airplane, and then the dog is brought onto the airplane in a separate container that is kept at 17 to 20 degrees Celsius, which is 64 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and pressurized and not much louder than the passenger area above. According to the airline, he doesn't spend more than 10 minutes on the tarmac, which is really what I wanted to hear. A couple of tips, I would say put your phone number everywhere on your dog's collar, put your phone number on the crate, and don't be afraid to ask questions when you're waiting. Ask the flight attendant, is my dog on the airplane? I did this, and they came to me eventually. They said, we have confirmation your dog is on the flight. So that was very good to hear. Step three, I made it to Portugal. I got out of the airplane. I was nervous. I was like, I'm here, and I think Momo's here too. So I ran to the counter, and I talked to the woman, and she was very kind and very helpful. She sent me to this set of gray doors where after I grabbed my luggage, I would just sit next to those gray doors. And I sat next to the gray doors for 20 minutes or so. Momo came out. I opened the crate. Momo kind of crawled out. He shook off. He licked my face and he did a stretch, and then he was happy. He was fine. He didn't seem strung out. He didn't seem over, anxious or anything. He seemed fine. He was happy, and that made me feel so good. I mean, you never know how these things are going to work out, because especially when you do something you've never done before, you just don't know how it's going to work out, but it worked out. After that, I went back to the official vet of the airport. She stamped my forms as well. She charged me 40 euros, and we were in Portugal. I was beside myself. I couldn't believe that I had made it with my dog to this foreign country, and that we were about to embark on this 6-month journey through this amazing, amazing land. Any questions that you have, anything that I might have forgotten, please throw a question underneath here in the comments, and I'll answer whatever I can. I hope you find this helpful. It's not the easiest thing traveling with a dog. You have to make a lot of sacrifices, but I feel like it's worth it. The dog it breaks down the barriers of language. It's this animal that everybody understands, and it's amazing when you meet someone that doesn't speak a word in your language, but they're still able to kind of pet your dog and look at them in the eyes, and then look at you, and you know that you agree on something. You agree this is a good dog. We don't speak each other's languages, but we like this dog, and that's a special thing right there. Here's Momo. Bye. Okay, there he goes. I hope you had a good time listening to my face.